What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of SCUM. This right here, as you all know, is the podcast where we dive into the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, R-E-triple-the-X. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Take one look. Search your feelings. You know it to be true that you are looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man. Mr. Wop Bop Loo Bop Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Woo, I'm feeling good today. And more importantly, I'm looking good. And so are you all out there. And for me, that's made possible by, and that's all I'm going to say, silence. Coming to you as always from the lush lavender lounge of love. Joined as always by the Keith Hernandez puppet. Together bringing you the No Frills podcast. You don't get no frills, but you get plenty of thrills. And that is getting the privilege, and it is a privilege, to look at this face, the second greatest front man to ever do it. And today I have a fucking treat. A real good one for you. A legend. Surprise. Rex Ruger talking to legends. It's what I do, folks. It's what I do. And, of course, another part of the No Frills podcast. I am not the motley crew of podcasting. No editing, no slick tricks. You see it all. Me conversing with my guests, me sending my invites, me doing it all. I'm a man of the people. Mr. Lo-Fi, Mr. International. Let's add that to the list. Because I am bringing you a plethora of great guests, even ones from overseas. The SCUM universe, the reach is immense. The impact is immense. Everything about what I do is immense. That's right. And here's my guest right now. Speaking of immense talents, immense legends. And we're going to get down to it with him right now. And there he is.
All right.
There he is.
I guess we'll just have to do this then. That's all.
That's all right. I went and checked the Google Drive, and it's capturing us both, man. So, you know, I'll try to replicate. And of course, when you're able to watch this back, and I send you the link, you'll obviously be able to see, you know, the whole episode. Let me try to work myself up to that same frenzy as before that I brought you in with, and tell people that this is a bona fide legend. And again, if you don't know who he is, your metalhead card is getting pulled today. Me and JJ French are coming to your house and taking it away from you. You lose all privileges. Right, Dee Dee? Oh, I called you Dee Dee. See that? JJ. I'm looking at Dee Dee's name, and I'm calling you. You're all fucking legends. Are you not?
Well, I don't know. Maybe to my daughter I'm not, but
toot your own horn a little bit here, JJ. You are a legend, though. I mean, 50 fucking plus years in the business, and certainly a difficult business to survive that long in. And I'm sure you can attest to that. And you know, we'll get to your book. You've written a great book about fusing together your memoir and business. But I'm you know, with so many musicians right now having a hard time and it being so feast or famine in the business right now, how important was it for you to put this book out and infuse it with these lessons of how to do business, you know, in the rock industry? Did you feel like there was a big call for this?
Well, there's always a calling for a good business book. And I knew I had it in me to do it because I've done so many motivational speaking gigs, and I tell people the story how the band made it. And they say you should write a book. And when you do motivational speaking, you really need a book as a calling card.
Mm-hmm.
So it was inevitable that the book was written. And I really, and the book speaks to the general business world, not necessarily to the rock world, but it applies to any business. That's why it works. That's why I do so many speaking engagements, because it doesn't matter if you're selling widgets or guitars or music. The basic principles of business are the same. What makes it sexy is my perspective in the music business, because it is sexy. I mean, you know, that's why people want to hear stories about it. I think the cliche is that we must have succeeded because of like a mix of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and fairy dust, you know, and some deal we made with the devil. And they don't think that a band actually sat there with a business plan and kind of executed a business plan. And we did. And I can't speak for Motley Crue, and I can't speak for any of the other bands because I don't know what they do. I don't know what they did to become successful. I know what we did, and that's all that matters. So I debunk a lot of myths, I think, in the business. We were a straight band. We really looked down on alcohol and drugs pretty much. And that's a big thing because most people think that that's all part of it, and we really never tolerated it. And I didn't tolerate it because I dealt with a lot of idiots who were alcoholics and drug addicts in the early stages of the band, in the early years. And I got sick of my future being held captive by their stupidity.
Yeah.
So I was putting together slowly a band that just didn't get high because people who are high are fairly uncontrollable in terms of their reliability, and B, the workload that we had was incredibly hard, and you can't work as much as we worked without dedicating yourself to it. And if you're recovering from a night of drinking, you're never going to keep up. So there was no way you could keep up with our schedule. Our schedule was crazy. The first 10 years of the band, we performed, on average 250 nights a year for 10 years. So that's 2,500 nights before the record deal.
Yeah.
And since most of those nights were 3 or 4 sets a night, you're talking about, 7,500 performances before the record deal. Most bands can't even comprehend that.
Yeah, it's grueling.
They can't comprehend it. I mean, if you talk to a young musician these days, they'll say to you, man, we were together 2 years, and I'll say, how many gigs have you played? And they'll say, well, probably 50 or 100. And and they talk to me like that's a big deal, And I say to them, well, you played what, 50 or 145-minute performances in the last 2 years? Yeah. Well, in the first 30 months of Twisted Sister's existence, from 1973 to 1975, from March 73 to September 75, we did 3,400 shows.
Yeah.
That's how you get good.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to put it. That's how you learn your craft. So
is that happening? Is that happening to a lot in today's music world? Do you see that as pretty typical of what's going on right now? Bands just with all this technology and almost a spoiled hand things to me attitude. Are bands just not going out there and just boning up on their chops? I mean, is that at its core? Is that really what a lot of it is?
Yeah, I mean, when you watch American Idol, what do? The winners of these record deals. I mean, it's almost laughable. They and when they win, they go, I want to thank my fans for sticking with me for 15 weeks. and you got to almost fall off your chair in the stupidity of that statement.
Yeah.
Like, really 15 weeks, man. Wow. That's some hell of a following you got. And look, I don't wish anybody ill. I mean, if you happen to make it on a fluke, it's like winning a lottery ticket. That's okay. But the problem by doing that is that you miss out on what it's going to take to survive after the first flush of success disappears.
Right.
Most artists make this mistake when they become successful. They think they own stardom. You don't own shit, my friend. You rent it.
Yeah.
You rent it from fans. And when they're sick of you, they'll let you know it. And if you look back to 1973, the class of 73, Kiss was 73, Aerosmith 73, AC/DC 73, Judas Priest 73, Leonard Skinner 73. I think if you go back to 73 and you ask any of us how long we would be in the business with one band, I think we'd all say maybe 5 years, maybe 10, because there was no classic rock back then. We were to become the classic rock, but we didn't have anything to compare it to. So now, you look back at it and you go, oh my God, 50 freaking years. And how did we all do it? And if you ask all of us, we'll all tell you what we went through. We went through successes, failures, bankruptcies, financial crises, band changes, band members dying. I mean, we all have suffered this, but we survived it. And that's the intangible. And you don't get that on American Idol. You just don't.
You sure don't. And for you, what was your, just the backpedal a little bit? What was your upbringing like? Like how early on in life did you get bit by the music bug and like know that this was a potential career path that you wanted to explore?
Well, that's a good question. When you do motivational speaking gigs to business people, as opposed to doing it to athletes and musicians, you notice the big difference between goals set by business people versus goals set by musicians and athletes. Usually goals set by business people are not set until after they graduate college. A lot of them don't even know what they're going to do. They may have business degrees, but then they work their way through corporate nightmares to figure out ultimately where they're going. When you talk to a creative person, the story is the same, and they'll say, well, when I was 8 or 9 years old, I saw something or heard something, and I said, I want to do that. Whether it's a girl seeing a Broadway show like Annie and then saying, I want to become a Broadway star, or a musician seeing the Beatles on TV when they're 10 and going, I want to be a rock star, or a world-class skier watching Bodie Miller on the slopes, win a gold medal or whatever his name was, and go, I want to do that. Then when you get bitten by the bug at a really early age like that, you're infused with inspiration, and then you're willing to kill yourself. And so what you do is you do this over and over and over again. There's a chapter in the book called The Boredom of Excellence, and the boredom of excellence speaks to the people who become really successful in this world by doing everything over and over and over and over again, where most rational people would never do it. Why am I going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to ski down 100 slopes every day for 10 years? Like, why? Right. Well, if you want to win a gold medal, motherfucker, that's why.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you want to be the first chair, at the in the Berlin Philharmonic as the violin player, then you're doing that 8 hours a day, starting at 8 or 9 years old, and you're doing it every day. And if you want to be in a rock band, you know what I mean? It's the same rule.
Sure.
It's the same rule that applies, and then if you're going to be an actor at 8 or 9 years old, you're going on go-sees and you're going to acting classes and you're doing musicals and you're doing musical theater and everything you could possibly do. Well, that's what you do when you're obsessed with a goal of succeeding. And so that's the whole point. It's weeding out the people who go, hey man, what a cool idea, versus someone who's actually going to do the work.
Yeah. And when you look at other, when you look at your peers, and you just mentioned, you're the class of 73 there, and obviously, all the aforementioned acts all went on to become, nothing short of legends. A mixed bag in there, certainly, because, you mentioned bands like Aerosmith and certainly guys with a notorious reputation for partying. But then you look at a band like Kiss. Now, did Kiss have a great formula as far as from a business standpoint? They do seem like a lot like Twisted Sister. They avoided substance abuse. They really branded themselves extremely well. Are they a band, in your opinion, that did things the right way?
Well, they certainly did things in a way that would make success easier.
Yeah.
So, whatever you want to say about Gene Simmons, he was always business oriented. The difference between me and him is I don't throw that up in people's faces like it's, I don't put the dollar bill on my forehead and parade around
yeah.
like that's part of my stage clothing. That's his particular shtick. That's like a Trump kind of a shtick, and that's fine. I mean, it works for him. It doesn't work for me, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they kill themselves. It doesn't take away from the fact they've done 25 albums or 30 albums or whatever. It doesn't take away from the fact they play thousands of shows. It doesn't take away from the fact that they've changed band members because of drug and alcohol problems. Yep. And it doesn't take away from the fact that they went through a dry period during the 80s when we were all successful. Kiss kind of disappeared as they became a non-issue. They reinvented themselves and come back. I mean, look at all these bands that reinvented themselves. Aerosmith reinvented themselves. So they crashed and burned. Aerosmith was one of the greatest bands that ever came out of the 70s, made some of the most amazing records. But I went to see them and they were so high, I couldn't tell what song they were singing. And I was an Aerosmith fan, and we played Aerosmith songs. And I was there with Eddie Ojeda, and we're like, what? Did you know what he's singing? I mean, it makes Bob Dylan sound like Pavarotti. I mean, and Steven Tyler is a great singer.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. He's an amazing singer. So, those guys, they went through hell and they came back. and they had an enormously successful career, and they're a fantastic band. They're every bit amongst the top American rock bands. And so, by the way, the list of groups I mentioned, Kiss, until Kiss got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I didn't think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was legitimate, because I don't care what you think of them. You could think it's like, I don't know, like kabuki theater, or they don't rate. But I will tell you, I think more people wanted to become rock stars after seeing Kiss than just about any other band. In fact, I think Ace Frehley is up there with Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen in terms of his inspiration.
Yeah.
I think he inspired more kids to want to be rock stars. So if you tell me, well, he's not a guitar player like Eddie, or he's not a guitar player like Jimmy, okay, that may be true, but he is the American Keith Richards. All right.
Yeah. No question about that. Yeah. No question about that.
And Keith isn't, the world's greatest rock star, but he embodies a certain thing, a thing.
Yeah.
And Ace embodied that thing, and Kiss had that thing, and AC/DC, they've gone through a million, what have they gone through now? Malcolm is gone. They've gone through so much heartache and so much bullshit. Bond being gone. I mean, and look what they did. They came back. So if you look at their story and you look at Leonard Skinner's story, I mean, coming back from, from death, from the plane crash. And we all have stories. We all have scars. We all have deep scars, but we've all been hardworking people that basically said, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. I mean, Twisted Sister came back from, we crashed and burned, and then came back and became one of the biggest bands in the European festival circuit, when basically people said, well, you're done. You're never coming back. We come back in 2003, and for 17 years, become one of the biggest festival draws in the world, make a Christmas album, which became a hit, which nobody expected. And then to have We're Not Gonna Take It, I Wanna Rock as the two most licensed songs in the history of heavy metal, more than any other band, by the way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take away from anybody else, because, all those bands I mentioned, we revere them. But if you would have said to me 40 years ago that We're Not Gonna Take It, I Wanna Rock will be the two most licensed songs in more movies, TV commercials, soundtracks, I'd say, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, anthems, absolute anthems. Yeah, absolute iconic anthems at that too. I want to take a look back at a snapshot in time and tell me what was going through your mind, if you can tap into that, back when, and it seems like so far ago, with how far we've come and how much you can get away with in mainstream media. But when you look back at that time when the PMRC was really, really raging and really looking to take down bands, and obviously D was a big focal point coming in, testifying. I mean, what did you think at that point in time?
I thought it was funny, actually. I thought I said, wow, this is just like. I thought it was hard to believe that a Democrat was doing this, by the way, with typical order. So that was part of my, I can't believe that. And secondly, I was very cynical about the whole thing. I just thought the whole thing, I said, well, if we sell more records, that'll be good. Because when those kinds of things happen, when artists are kind of singled out as destroying the morality of the world. Yeah. It usually helps your record sales. Sure. And it usually helps your book sales. And but I would say the most dangerous part of it was we were harassed by police all over the South, and it was scary. We played one venue in Texas where we had state troopers aiming guns at us the whole time. That was pretty damn scary. Yeah. He was arrested for obscenity down there. We were hassled, harassed all over the state of Texas, and that was in the 80s. And, now there's all this kickback about, drag performers. They passed laws in the 80s. Some of these uber right-wing reactionary Republican towns passed these anti-rock laws to show you how out of touch they were. They said that if you perform sex with animals, dead people, or children on stage, you were banned. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know a single act that does that. No. I never knew a single act that does it. And furthermore, they said if you have songs that, if you perform sex, by the way, you're hearing New York City in the background. There's nothing I can do with that. Yeah. But if you perform sex with animals, dead people or children, or you sing songs about it, you can't play in our venue. Well, who the hell does that? I mean, So we wouldn't be banned. And so then these morality police would come down to watch us because they're sure we did that. You know, they're sure we're going to perform sex with children, dead people, or animals on stage. Or we're going to sing songs about performing sex, which of course none of us do. Yeah. Then they're stunned when they can't arrest us because there's no foundation to arrest the band. So they arrest D for obscenity. That was the big deal, and they felt stupid. The whole thing was just stupid, and the whole thing is ignorant, and it's just entertainment. And my God, you know, it's just unbelievable. I thought we were past that. I thought we got smarter, but apparently we got some more stupid motherfuckers out there.
We sure fucking do.
Stupid fucking rules and laws that have absolutely no bearing other than the fact that they think it does and that they want to protect our kids. I mean, give me a break. First of all, the kids are the ones that are the most advanced. They're the most progressive. They lead the change. They know. They know. Yeah. And it's kind of like saying in my generation, I was the hippie generation, the 60s, and nobody understood us, right? Nobody. Right. My parents didn't. Nobody's parents did. They kind of put the white flag out there, like, we don't understand it, you know. When we all went to Woodstock, there was no cell phones. Do you think any of us called our parents?
Right.
Think any of us cared? I mean, now, like, you got to text me every 5 minutes. Fuck that. Back in the 60s, I went to Europe for a summer. I think I made one phone call back to New York because it took 3 hours to get to the payphone.
Right.
And we're all dealing drugs out of Amsterdam and having a hell of a good time in the process.
Sure.
Because as I do say in the book, although the band was straight, I had a history of drug use and drug dealing, which by the way is the reason why I'm straight, because I, you know, almost met my end on a number of occasions, and that all stopped before the band started. So it was kind of like when I was 20 years old, I said to my mom, I got good news and bad news. She said, what is this? Well, the good news is I've decided not to do drugs anymore and deal. I'm totally straight. Oh, that's a relief. That's great. That's fantastic. I said, yep. However, I'm going to join a transvestite rock band.
And to think that was the good news.
and I was thinking, was she thinking to herself, which is worse?
Yeah. Which one was the bad news again?
Yeah. And, you know, so I think she was like, what? I said, yeah. I said, we're going to dress like women. And that was the whole deal of looking like that back in 72, to look like chicks. And because I was told the way to get girls was to look like a girl. Like that was the whole calling card. Because I did ask the guys in the band if any of them were gay, because I was just curious. You know, curious. By the way, is anybody gay? Not that I care, but I just want to know. And they went, hell no, man. We ain't gay. Chicks love guys that look like chicks. I was like, oh, okay. Well, duh. Isn't that what the whole hairband era was in LA?
It sure was. Yeah, it sure was. I would agree with you. I think the bands that were the most successful were the ones that could pull off really replicating what a chick would look like.
That's exactly the Poison, Motley, you know.
Yeah.
All that. I mean, we all look like we all look like freaking Linda Evans Dynasty.
Yeah. It was the formula for success. And speaking of the formula for success, you've written this book, but you know, as I mentioned, you know, 50 plus years in the business, and I don't know if this happens to you often, but even just playing devil's advocate, what you would say, you know, I talk to so many young musicians on here, and I asked them, you know, where do you take, you know, what direction does a young band go in now to kind of catapult themselves and kind of progress, you know, their career along? You know, I see people are still making videos, although there's no more MTV as we knew it, but bands still do make videos and put them up on YouTube. Is the secret making a kick-ass album? Is it getting a lot of streams? If someone comes to you as a young musician and says, JJ, you know what I mean, how do I advance my band? How do I do it? You know, how do I find some stardom out there? What do you tell them?
This is what I tell them. When it first used to happen to me, and people come up to me and give me for advice, my first reaction was going to be, I didn't ask anybody for advice when I was 20.
Right.
So go fuck yourself and figure it out. Like, you know, that's my first response is, why are you asking me? Like, I didn't have a shortcut. You know, there was actually a very real business approach that I took to the whole thing, which was, you're 20 years old, you look around other 20-year-olds, you look around other bands that are 20, and you copy what they do, and that's what you do. I mean, that's you know, essentially that is the answer. But my first response was like, "Are you serious, man? Figure it out for yourself, idiot. Don't fucking ask me." Like, I figured it out. I didn't ask anybody. But then I had an aha moment recently, and this aha moment was really important. Okay, and I will tell you what that aha moment was.
Okay.
So, a 20-year-old kid comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, what do you have advice for me today?" And of course the initial reaction is, don't ask me. Then I thought about it. I said, you know what? When I was 20 years old, 1972, I knew professional musicians in my neighborhood because I live in Manhattan. So there's a lot of professional musicians, who play on Broadway, They do commercials, all that shit. And they lived in my apartment building, very, successful people. And I never asked them for their advice. And I realized why I never asked them for advice. Because they would have looked at me and said, son, let me tell you something. I'm 70 years old, which means I was born in 1902.
Yes.
And if you ask me what I did when I was 18 in 1920, I would tell you I joined a band that played in a hotel ballroom backing a female singer. Because that's what you did, which basically says my life has nothing to do with your life. My pathway has zero to do with what you do, because you're now playing through Marshall amplifiers and looking like a chick. That does not exist when I was 18 years old. Right? And so basically what happened when I was 20 and I joined the band, when I became a member of Twisted, I said to the guys in the band, how do we make money? Because I came from this kind of successful background and I wasn't going to starve. And they said, well, we have a formula. You rehearse the music and you play bars. And back then, you got work all the time. And you made $150 a night, 6 nights a week. But back then, gasoline was 29 cents a gallon. Okay. A house rental was $300 a week. A truck rental was $25. Rather, house rental was $300 a month. A truck rental was $25 a week. So what I did, and also there was thousands of record companies. The drinking age was 18, so there's thousands of bars. So the pathway I took does not exist anymore, right? It's about as old as that 70-year-old musician, 1972, playing in a ballroom backing a female singer.
Right.
Like, it doesn't exist. So what I say to these artists is very simple. You're 20, who are your favorite bands? And they'll tell me a bunch of their bands, forgetting the Metallicas and all that stuff. But like, I'll say, would you follow any local bands? You see any local guys your age having success? They go, yeah. I said, do you know how they succeeded? Read interviews with them and do what they're doing. And if it's social media, merchandise, making one track, putting it up, seeing how it happens, that kind of thing, that's what you do. You emulate what's out there, because they're the ones that are doing the formula. So I'm right now friends with a young band called Adam and the Metal Hawks. They're all 18 years old, except the singer's 24. And he was a finalist on American Idol. And I'm watching them succeed, and they're doing a phenomenal job. They're working when they can work. But they're out there. They partnered with WFAN radio show, became the favorite band of the morning drive team. So they're always on their special sporting event shows. They're making their songs. They're getting tons of support. Their tour manager is my agent tour manager. So they put them on European festivals. That's how you do it. You claw and you claw. You become an influencer. That's the rules of the game today. The rules of the game today is you're not going to make demos and send them to a record company, so they don't exist anymore. So forget that. And you don't even need a record label these days. Frankly, if you pull it off yourself, you're better off not even fucking with them. They're just nothing but criminal organizations anyway, which I describe in my book. And I say it lovingly, since a lot of my friends run record labels now. but they're fucking indentured servitude and criminal organization in my mind. So if you could avoid them, that would be a good thing. But you don't necessarily have to avoid them. But they don't sign bands the way they signed them back in my day. Back in my day, they wanted to sign a good band. They don't give a fuck about a good band. They just care about your social media presence. That's all they care about. So if you're getting 1 billion streams, they're going to sign you. And if you're getting 5 streams, they're not going to sign you.
Right.
And I don't care if you're the latest version of Queen. They're not going to sign you. But they'll sign crap that's getting 1 million streams, because you know what? If you're getting 1 billion streams, you're not really crap. I may not like you.
Right. You're an entity, though.
But you're not crap. It's obviously working for somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dissuade anyone. I don't want to be so critical on a genre of music I don't understand, because I don't understand it. It's not fair to the musician who's playing it. I don't understand. It doesn't matter what I care. It really doesn't matter. I don't listen to contemporary music because sociologically, as we get older, we stop doing that. We just stop buying it. We're not your people. So I listen to music if my daughter says, Dad, you got to listen to this. Okay? There's 8 jillion bands out there. So if a friend or my daughter says, stop and listen, I will. Other than that, I'm listening to Coltrane, Miles Davis, jazz for the most part.
Yeah.
Classical music, Beatles, Stones, because that's my music. And it makes me happy. Or I go to Broadway shows. It makes me happy. I don't need you're not selling the shit to me, is my point. You're not
right.
I'm not your demographic you're selling it to, and you don't need me to go, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, because it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
And no 13-year-old girl gives a fuck what I think about their music. And I understand that. So it doesn't matter. Listen, I learned a lesson from my daughter years ago. And my daughter fully is aware of what great music is. I mean, she loves Queen, she loves the Beatles, and so she knows what great music is. But one day she said to me, Dad, I want you to come and hear my friend's band. And I went to the basement of a friend's house on Lower East Side, like when she was like 14 or 15. And I heard her friend's band. And, they were awful, right? They were like horrible. I mean, they made, I don't know, they made Velvet Underground sound like the Beatles or something. It was like horrible.
Yeah.
Or they made the Dolls sound good. But the point being was this. We walked out and I said, sweetheart, why do you like that group? They're awful. You know what great music is. And she says, but they're my group, Dad. Meaning these are her friends.
Right.
And I'm thinking, when I was 15, I probably sucked too.
Right.
And I had a little band, with my buddies. And we played for our little buddies. And they all supported us, because that's what people do. And I thought to myself, you know what? I have no right to be judgmental about that shit at this point. Right. I should just go, cool. I hope they succeed. And one of them, by the way, I still mentor 15 years later. She's an amazing violinist, singer, songwriter, and she's out there killing herself as a solo artist right now. Her name is Melissa, and I love her to death, and I'll help her because I've known her since she was 15. And I just help her for nothing, because I just happen to believe in her. And anytime she wants advice, she gives me a call, and I'll help her out. But anyway, that just gives you, I know it's a long answer to your question.
No, not at all. No problem at all. But I'm curious though, you make a good point about the social media following, and and that's kind of what propels people in the industry today to be, quote unquote big. But when you mention people like Hendrix or even in recent years, even going back to like the 80s, your Michael Jacksons, your Madonnas, your Princes, going back even further than that, your John Lennon's, has that day passed, or will it come back around again where we will see clearly definable rock stars again, iconic rock stars, or is that era dead and gone?
Well, let me ask you this question. How old are you?
50.
Okay. So 50. Can you name me any contemporary very successful artists that your kids may love that you kind of know, but that you kind of know and would think they're going to become successful? Can you name me anyone?
No, and that's the sad part.
Right. So the thing is this. I don't think any one of us knew at the time that the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Zepp, Floyd were going to be around 50 years. I don't think any of us knew. They were pop artists, and pop is the pop music of the day. Do you look at Eminem and go, he will be the Gershwin of the rap era.
Right.
Are you going to look at Jay-Z and go, and say he's going to be the whatever, the Stevie Wonder of the rap? I don't know the answer to that question. Time will tell, and it's far be it from me to figure it out. Look, I grew up at the right place at the right time. I was born in 1952, and I was 15 when Sgt. Pepper came out, and I was at the right place at the right time and saw some of the greatest acts in the world. Now, will it matter in another 50 years? I have no clue. But I'm also not wedded to the idea of rock needs to constantly come back, because I think that's crazy too. I think that's kind of nonsensical. I think life goes on, civilization evolves, and whatever happens, happens. And rock is now a 55 or 60-year-old medium. That's a long time to be a medium.
Yeah.
That's a long ass time. And if it's over for it, it's over for it. And if it's not, it's not. I just don't sit there and go, oh, woe is me. When's the next Pink Floyd coming around? Because who says there has to be?
Right.
And not only who says there has to be, but to us it matters. But to a 15-year-old kid, they don't give a fuck about that. So who is it for them? Because we look at them and go, well, you don't understand. When I was a boy, we had great bands, But my father used to hate all of this shit and go,
sure.
Yeah, your music sucks. Like my father never understood it. He was a classical music guy. He'd say, if he heard Schubert's Mass in F minor by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, he goes, now that's music. Well, all that says to me is that was his era,
Right.
That was his thing. And so I don't want to be dismissive of anything. You look at the last 8 years of the most downloaded songs, and you'll have Psy, Gangnam Style, and you'll have Despacito, and the song Despacito, with like 4 billion streams or 5 billion streams. You can say, well, Psy is a flash in the pan, or what is he? I don't know. But the point is, what happens these days is because media is so ubiquitous, and because the light shines so brightly, that the exposure is enormous, and then it kind of dissipates. Now, Taylor Swift is, I think, arguably the most famous worldwide pop star.
I would agree.
And maybe Ed Sheeran is number 2. Because they sell a shitload of music and they sell out all these major festivals. Will they be around? I don't know. They may be. And if they are, that's because kids who are 15 today or 13 today, when they get married, when they're 30, 35, they'll play those records at their weddings.
Yep.
The same way that we play the music of the 80s in our weddings or whatever. Things will change, and I don't know. I mean, I saw Ed Sheeran live. I thought he was phenomenal. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was spectacular. What he pulled off was insane, and he could be that. He could be the next Billy Joel or the next Springsteen.
Sure.
Look, Dylan's out there. He's still out there, and I saw him recently. He was awful. He shouldn't be allowed out like. He was, but there are people who love it, because that's the whole beauty of entertainment. It's in the ear and on the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. And with somebody with their, who has their hand, in so many different pots, pardon the expression, but you're a columnist. You mentioned you do the motivational speaking. You've written the book. You're a founding member and a guitar player of Twisted Sister. You certainly have your hand in a lot of different things. How did going back a couple of years when we were all hunkered down going through this COVID shit? How did that affect you and what you do and business and how you thrive and make a living? What was the effect of COVID on you?
Well, I was able to finish my book because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing fucking else to do. I mean, everything was shut down, and we were able to contemplate the future of humanity. Living here in New York City was terrifying because so many people were dying, and unless you lived in New York City, you can't even contemplate how unbelievable it was to see Mount Sinai Hospital having a field hospital in Central Park. It looked like something out of a movie set. The day that they opened that field hospital, they had freezer trucks. You heard about those refrigerated trucks with their bodies on the street.
Yep.
That was like the zombie apocalypse. You could stand on Amsterdam Avenue and look down in the middle of the afternoon and not see one car. Or one day I went for a walk in the park. I remember calling my wife, and I'm standing in the middle of the great lawn in Central Park, and I said to her, darling, there's not another human being in this park, or that I could see. Let's put it that way. I said, as far as I could see, I'm the only person standing in a city of 8 million people in the middle of the park. So that was pretty awesome. Hopefully we'll never have to live through that again. But it did enable me anyway to finish my book and start my podcast career. So my podcast, The JJ French Connection, is on Spotify and Apple. And I have a lot of great people. I have a lot of different, I have authors, I have actors, I have writers, I have musicians, I have then I have people that survived prostate cancer, because I'm a prostate cancer survivor. Let's kind of put that out there too. So I had
congratulations on that. I'm always fascinated by that. That's my day job. I work in healthcare as a nurse, so I'm always glad to hear people overcoming a health problem. So congrats on that. That's great news.
Well, when people say to me, what does that mean? I said, it just means that today I don't have cancer.
Right.
Because tomorrow you can, because who the fuck knows? Cancer is an awful, pernicious disease. It just takes one cancer cell out there, right? So that's that. Then my daughter has an eye disease called uveitis. I raise money for the foundation, for the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation, and that's a complicated disease. When you have a child when you have a sick child and you have to learn about something you never had to think that you had to learn about. So I know an awful lot about uveitis. And, it's debilitating, and it's an eye disease. Your uvea is your middle lens of your eye, and this is it's an inflammatory eye disease, and it's the leading cause of blindness among girls in America and around the world, as a matter of fact. So if you have a 6-year-old kid, just have them checked out for uveitis, because if you check them out at 6 and they have it, you'll be in good shape. And if they have it and you don't check them out by 9, the damage will be irreversible. So that's another issue too. So with all the trappings of the rock and roll bullshit that surrounds me, the reality of my own mortality, I have 2 heart operations because of atrial fibrillation, and the surviving of prostate cancer and raising money for uveitis research, that kind of grounds you,
Absolutely.
So.
And it's always good to hear good news, and that's the fact that you're cancer free, at least right now, is fantastic news. And obviously all those endeavors that you just mentioned, and raising money for these charities and for these for these health afflictions is always certainly to be commended. And you're right. I certainly noticed that as I've gotten older, you certainly do, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but I certainly do start to think, and I think it's just inherent in everybody. We just start thinking about our mortality more, as you said. You start to realize that you don't have too many more goes around the track, so to speak, and it's staring you in the face.
Yeah, I question my value on the planet Earth on a daily basis.
Yeah,
and I say to myself, have I done everything I can do? Is there stuff I can do more?
Right.
Then the other question is Twisted Sister's 50th anniversary is this year. We're not going to take it. Stay Hungry's 40th anniversary is next year. What does that mean? We were inducted in the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. In January, we played 3 songs. They're up on YouTube. It was fun to do it. Does it mean we're going to do more? Right now, I don't know. We may or may not. I don't know. Everyone seems to be doing their final tours. Their end of their life tours, because we're all getting older. We're all. I mean, the bands I mentioned, they all came out of '73. We're all in getting into our mid-70s at this point.
Right. Well, Kiss could be on their farewell tour possibly to 2073. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I don't doubt that they'll figure out a way to keep those cadavers rocking as long as they can. But AC/DC is going to be playing that thing in California this year. Ozzy is supposed to be done, but now he's playing more show, which is, I don't know, good for him if he can do it. I thought he couldn't walk, but I guess he can. Good for him. But meanwhile, we've lost Pete Way, we've lost Lemmy from Motorhead, we've lost so many people. And
AJ from your band, rest in peace.
And AJ from my band, of course, and AJ from my band. I mean, among many, many, many others. So I don't know what's going to happen with Twisted. That's always an open conversation. I just don't know. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be okay. I'm happy my daughter's okay. I'm happy my grandchildren are okay. And we just take it all day by day.
So you are here to say today, though, that and because that was a question I was going to get to, knowing this is the 50th anniversary of Twisted Sister, at this point in time, especially you as a founding member, there's nothing to report right now on the Twisted Sister home front about what will happen here in your 50th year. You don't know about shows or anything going on at this point.
No, just that the 40th anniversary of Under the Blade should be coming out shortly, and that's going to be a double vinyl album. And one of those albums is going to have us playing cover material from back in the bar days, which we've never released before. Okay. So we're going to have us playing Zeppelin and Aerosmith songs, which no one's ever heard. So I think people will really appreciate. That's new. And then, of course, you've got the 40th anniversary of Can't Stop Rock and Roll, and then next year you have the 40th anniversary of Stay Hungry. And I just don't know. I really don't know. Right now, we, there's the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, which is actually a real building, like a real thing.
Yeah.
And there's a huge exhibit, and it's a Twisted Sister exhibit. It almost looks like the Twisted Sister Hall of Fame. So in the last 6 months, we're honored by the Long Island Music Hall of Fame with a gigantic exhibit on Twisted Sister, because the bar scene in Long Island was so unique, and we were so connected to that world, which most people don't even know about. But it's much more important to our history of the band than all the stuff that happened with MTV, which I don't even regard as part of our history. Frankly, that's just my own personal perspective.
Yeah, right.
That 5 years in the spotlight was like ho hum. I'm bored, and that was that. It was what happened in the bars for me. That was the most important thing. So anyway, we have that. Then the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, which is great. In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who knows? Those people, I've made enough derogatory comments about that organization to guarantee that we'll never be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you finished it. It's in the bag, JJ.
But it's too bad, because if they were just not so stupid,
yeah,
we probably embody the American work ethic more than just about any other band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody worked harder than us. We certainly played more shows than Springsteen and the Grateful Dead. I can tell you that. And
yeah.
But the bottom line is, you can't control that shit. You just have to go out there. And what's the legacy of Twisted is, I don't know, 30 million albums sold, headlined 40 countries, 30. I have 37 gold and platinum albums on my wall, from either the band, the multiple platinum albums in multiple countries, or me involved with Seven Dust, for example. So I guess that signifies that a life was lived.
Yeah.
Plus I survived, all the versions of the band, and that was crazy. Because we had so many morons in the band. But I also have, Dee's like probably the greatest. I think he's one of the greatest frontmen in the history of the music industry.
Hands down. Yeah.
People don't know, he's unappreciated, which is too bad, because when it comes to a frontman, I don't think there's a more entertaining frontman. Also, what people don't understand is if you say how many bands can entertain in front of 100,000 people at a festival, and the answer is not many, and we're one of those bands, because we know how to entertain. So promoters give us 100,000 people like it's nothing.
Right.
And when we do it, it's natural. So people, how do you do it? Well, if you do something thousands of times and you still suck at it, maybe you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
But we got really good at that, and I'm proud of what we succeeded. Mendoza is a phenomenal bass player and a great producer. Radio Jade is a great player. I mean, I was in a band with really good players and people who dedicated and gave their life to a cause. And I think the other bands I mentioned, Kiss and AC/DC and Judas Priest and Lynyrd Skynyrd and Aerosmith, same thing with those guys. When you've been in this business this many years and succeed, and not just in heavy metal, I don't care if you're a pop artist, I don't care what, you get my respect for lasting this many years in this. The entertainment business is a tough business.
It really is. It really is. And I talk to so many people, on my own podcast here, specifically from the arts and entertainment field, and a lot of musicians. And it really is tough, because I guess in my own sense of being naive and not being in the industry myself, people will pop up on my screen who I've listened to for 20, 30 years even. And I just automatically think, wow, I'm looking at somebody that's been doing this for a long time, and they have to be set. So then I'm always taken back when they're talking about their day job and having to go out and actually work. And I guess, as I said, that's me being like naive and thinking, okay, everybody that picks up an instrument is just automatically set. You know, I mean, you know, they're living somewhere in some ivory tower or something. And obviously that's not the case. It really is a feast or famine business.
Well, not only that, but the reality of the business is if you are in a band and you have a gold record, that all that means is you owe the record label about $500,000.
Yes.
And then if you only get a second gold record, then you now owe them $1 million. If you only get a third album, now you're in the hole for $1.5 million. By the fourth album, if it's only gold, you have to file for bankruptcy or break up. That is that truth.
Yeah.
That's that truth. So
Yeah.
you say, well, what about these other bands? These other bands had multiple platinum albums over many, many years and multiple sellout tours. That's how you make money. But the whole myth about you see a gold record on the wall, someone's a millionaire. I once did a breakdown for a financial organization because I said, let me explain how much a band makes on a 2 million selling record. And I did a whole analysis and I showed exactly how it all comes down to a 5-man band and royalties on a 2 million selling record, that you'll get a double platinum album on your wall. And basically, when I met Motley Crue, they had a triple platinum album, which was, I forgot which one it was, but I said, how much money did you all make on that record? They said enough to buy a nice car each.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it till I got in the business. And
Yeah.
then you understand the packaging deductions, the paying on 90%, paying on this, you know, like the deductions, the legal ripoffs are incredible. You don't have to be a criminal to steal
Right.
money in this business because it's built into the contracts. The criminality is built into your contracts. Forgetting about being ripped off by your manager after that, we're talking simply the way the mechanics work in the music industry. It's unbelievable. So the public perceives you as a billionaire with a platinum record on the wall and has no idea what really hello, you still there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just lost your camera there for
they
a
have
minute,
no
yeah.
idea. They have no idea of the reality of what you're facing. You know, it's an unbelievable business, but luckily we've survived, and our songs are thankfully licensed to more movies and soundtracks, and that's why we're successful, because we have an extraordinary post career as a licensing our music.
Yeah, I can't see you anymore.
Okay, well, let's see. Hold on.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Okay.
So
We're fortunate from that standpoint. We morphed into a licensing business, and that's how we survived.
So essentially, it's almost like you know, comparing you know, musicians are you guys are almost working on a commission that's contingent on, you know, you reaching some type of superstardom to really make money.
Well, that's the only way you really make money, is you have to be consistently huge for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's pressure.
And that's how you do it. But if you just have flash in the pan, you don't see anything. And by the way, look at all the American Idol winners and all these other people. You ever hear from them? Only a couple.
Right.
Because they made nothing. They sold all their rights away, and that's just what, you know. That's what they do. You mortgage your future, and that's what happens. And it's a cold, hard reality.
Yeah.
The survivors, the ones that have been around for years, yes, they succeed. But most of the musicians I know have to work until the rest of their lives. They've got to work. So also, by the way, it's not how much you make, it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep.
Yeah.
And the stupidity of a lot of entertainers is that they think that once it starts, it lasts forever.
Yeah. Yep.
And it doesn't. And then what do? But if you have a long-term view of business and a long-term view of life, you set yourself up. I've always lived frugally because I never believed in any of it. I never believed in stardom. I'm lucky in that we became successful when I was in my 30s, because if I had become successful in my 20s, I could have been really stupid.
Yeah.
By the time I reached 32 and we started having success, I was much smarter.
Yeah.
And much more cynical about how long you're going to last and how much money you can make.
Yep.
And so I always watched myself, but that's a matter of self-discipline, and also being smart, and also reading every book you can about all the horror stories that existed in this business.
Yep. And speaking of that, I implore people, you know, especially, you know, musicians that are, you know, quote unquote, you know, trying to make it. The book is Twisted Business, and that is a very apropos title. Boy, is it ever, huh? Twisted Business: Lessons from My Life in Rock and Roll. And you know, I certainly would implore, and I have a lot of young musicians on here. I'd love to give them a platform. I realize the degree of difficulty in the business right now. So I would certainly implore any of the people that I'm going to talk to or have talked to, to read this book. I mean, you certainly can't knock the results. I mean, it's certainly not easy to make it, 50 plus years and find a modicum of success in this business at all. So you certainly have done that. And the name of your own podcast again is what? And where people can find it?
It's the JJ French Connection.
Oh, that's good.
Beyond the Music on Spotify and Apple and Podcast One. And I have a lot of there's really great guests on the show. My A&R guy, Jason Flom, is going to be my guest. I'm going to record him next week because we record a bunch of shows and then put them up online. You know what I mean? We put them up every Tuesday.
Yeah.
But there's about 80 of them up right now.
Yeah.
And I've got movie directors and, like I said, I've got TV producers and all sorts of interesting people online, and I think people really enjoy it because it's very varied and it's not the same old story. It's really different. I bring people on that I really like, and I also I've got prostate cancer survivors on my show. Talking about how they survived it because we all feel that we need to educate people as far as that's concerned. Men don't pay attention, and they should.
They should. Yep. I could say that as a nurse. Yep. You go for guys out there. I know you don't want to think about it, man, but get that finger up the ass, get it checked. You got to do it.
You got to do it, man. And then, and you owe it to your family and your loved ones, and at the end of the day, if those difficult questions come around about what's going to mean to your sex life and all this shit, the first thing you have to say to yourself is, do I pick living versus dying? That's your first question. You have to ask yourself, do I want to live? And then you figure out how your quality of life is. And that's a whole other, that's another 20 hours worth of stuff. But what I'm saying is that because I've been afflicted with it, because I had 2 heart operations to cure my AFib, and I know what atrial fibrillation is like, I know how to survive that, because I was a drug addict as a teenager, because I survived that, because we survived businesses for years. There's a lot of good advice in the book, and so I appreciate the fact that you like it. Twisted Business is available on Amazon, and it's a really good book. And thank you. And also thank you for promoting my podcast. And I'm also available for motivational speaking gigs. And if you want to reach me, the email to reach me at is askjjts, which is ask, like the word ask. Can I ask you a question? Ask JJJAY, and then the letters TS, which was askjjts@gmail. And you can contact me through that if you want to hire me to talk to your Fortune 500 or less companies.
Awesome. Listen, JJ, this has been a real blast and a real treat. And I thank you so much for coming on here, man. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you carving out a little bit of time. And, when I put the episode up, I will send you a link to it. Feel free to share it wherever you would like. But I've just been such a thrill to getting the chance to talk to you. I've been such a fan for so long. You've given us, some of the greatest music in the history of rock and roll. I certainly hope that we will see you guys out there on the road again in some way, shape, or form to celebrate everything that you guys have done in your past. But this has been really great for me, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for being persistent enough to keep bothering me to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that tenacity is one of the things I talk about. That you always have to keep pursuing it. You never take no for an answer, and you keep pushing, because at the end of the day, that's what you really have to do. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
I love that message, man, and that's a great way to close. And congratulations on overcoming your health obstacles, and I wish you all the best going forward, and all the best with all your endeavors in your own personal health. So thank you, JJ. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, later, buddy.
Bye-bye.
And as we close the show right here, that was awesome, absolutely fucking awesome. JJ can probably still hear us. He's probably trying to figure out how to log off this damn thing, like so many other people. But I want to give him a huge fucking salute. That's JJ French, founding member, guitar player extraordinaire. Look, I'm giving him his flowers, and he's still on here. I can't get rid of the guy, but I don't want to.
I'm going to figure out a way to get him there now. All right.
It should be a red button down at the bottom there that looks like a phone that you can just click on. There he goes, folks. There he goes. The guy podcast. The guy has his hand in a million different pots of stew. but yet he couldn't find a way to get out of my out of Google Meet. Thank you, Google Meet, for that, for constantly making it difficult for guests to get the fuck out of here. But anyway, that's an issue with Google Meet. But that is the great, and I mean great, J.J. French, founding member of one of the great rock and roll bands of all time, Twisted Sister. If you don't know anything of Twisted Sister, you know two songs, I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It Anymore. And if you don't know those songs, you consider yourself a rock fan, leave our fucking country, but please leave your metalhead card at the door, because you don't deserve it. JJ French, D. Snyder, one of the greatest frontmen of all time, Eddie Fingers Ojeda, or however you want to pronounce his last name. It looks like Ojeda to me. That's how I would pronounce it, thinking back to New York Met great and Keith Hernandez's old teammate, Bob Ojeda. Eddie goes by the nickname of Fingers. Same nickname a lot of my girlfriends used to call me. Mark Mendoza, the Animal, another popular nickname that the girls like to call me back in the day. So I do have a kinship with this band. I love I love him, and I love JJ, and hats off to him for doing this, because he is a busy man. He gave out all his credentials. Go check out the JJ French Connection, his podcast. Do go check out the book Twisted Business: Lessons from My Life in Rock and Roll, part memoir, part lesson plan for people in business, not just the music business, in business in general. And of course, go back and check out the discography, the great discography of the legendary Twisted Sister that goes back all the way to 1973. Much like myself, I go back to 1973. So all kinds of great stuff came out of 1973. Aerosmith, AC/DC, Twisted Sister, and Rex Ruger. So 73, a very good year. But I want to thank the great JJ French, man. Just an icon, a fucking absolute icon. Go support everything that guy does. And of course, we wish him all the best with his health going forward. A cancer survivor, man, a guy that's really a true rock and roll warrior out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed the privilege of getting the chance to talk to JJ. Thank you so much to JJ French for coming on here. And until we get together and do this thing again, remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.